One only has to look at your environments around us where we say art and creativity have been abandoned or neglected. And you can see that the lack of art, the lack of creative expression leads to horrible hopelessness and drabness and deadness. So there's something very life-giving connected to art and to the importance of art.
My name is Sonia Small here. I'm an artist, art coach, and course creator. When I graduated from the Art Academy, I had learned how to paint and how to draw, but I had no idea how to earn a living with my creativity. I was not prepared for the life as a working artist. This often left me quite frustrated, sometimes on the verge of calling it quits, throwing away my brushes and giving it all up. But I'm so glad I didn't. After many failed attempts and valuable lessons learned, I've discovered ways to turn my creativity into a profession, now giving me the freedom to live the life I love. I created the Help I'm Artist podcast because no matter where you are on your journey, whether you're just starting out or maybe you've been a working artist for a while, you too can take steps to turn your creative passions into a meaningful, sustainable profession. The Help I'm Artist podcast is filled with fresh inspiration, practical tips, and interviews with artists who are experts in their field. If you're a smart artist or one in the making who's looking for new and exciting ways to get your art out of your studio and into the hands and hearts of an audience that's appreciative and willing to pay what it's worth, then you're in the right place. Happy listening. Duncan Stewart is a multidisciplinary South African artist working from a deep personal sense of why. In part 2 of Duncan's story, he highlights the importance of art and how it is a powerful language with which we can connect on a deep level. Enjoy part 2 of our conversation. Do you have a favorite project that you've worked on maybe recently or in the past that you thought this is where all the elements came together? This is something that was relevant and that you really had so much joy making. Is there something that springs to mind?
Yeah, I suppose it's one that surprised me because I don't sculpt that much, but I was commissioned to do a bronze sculpture of a unicorn, which was a meter high. And so that's a lovely size. And I mean, you just don't know. I mean, how do you do that? and can I do it? Am I good enough to make something look like a unicorn versus 4 lumps of clay with a sharp rhino horn on the front? And what I loved about that project is that I was so surprised that my hands were able to produce a sculpture that just found its way. It came alive in my fingers, and the whole process, setting it up on its plinth in the site that it had been planned for, and then the opening that happened around it, and working with the foundry along the way. It was just a all-in-all total success. And then along the way, we introduced 3D scanning. So we scanned the original, and then we printed miniature versions, and we bronzed them or patinated them to look like bronzes. And so there were many other aspects and technology, 21st century technology meeting centuries-old technologies. And being in the middle of that mix, loving horses, which is where I drew my inspiration from, lots of drawing on and sketching and following of horses. And so there was a lot of parts in that it all just worked very nicely. I was very encouraged and content with that project.
Sounds exciting. I hope we can see these things somewhere. That maybe on your Instagram or on Facebook.
Yes, if you scroll down in the Instagram, you'll definitely come across the unicorn.
The unicorn in the make. And then I think maybe you've answered this already. What do you love the most about being an artist?
I think for me, it's the sense of empowerment you have, that your life is really your own. You cannot do any work, you cannot work at it, and nothing will come of it. But at the same time, you're free to direct and navigate and create out of this opportunity called life whatever you want and whatever you can. I've been employed. If I have to contrast being an artist, it's like being unemployed. You have to employ yourself, apply yourself to things. But I've been employed in great companies but you're never free. And I suppose it's that sense of absolute free, which, the flip side of that is that you're also 100% responsible for anything that goes wrong or anything that goes right. And I love that sense of being alive,
And then, of course, the flip side of that is, what do you least like about being an artist?
Yeah, without a doubt, the financial pressure, that sucks.
Yeah.
Trying to keep the balance, as we spoke about earlier, keep the balance between making work that is profitable, not being enslaved to that, being free enough to still make creative work and to be creative, to be curious, and getting that balance right. I find that very tough. But again, it's not an island. I've got amazing support structures around me so that when I lose balance and those things get out of kilter, there are safety nets, an amazing wife, in amazing friends that know me well and intimately and can walk with me through those times. And that community for me is as beautiful as any artwork. So for me, that's I love making art. I love when people respond positively to the art. But for sure, I need those negative seasons because they fashion something inside of me. If maybe compassion for others, maybe greater understanding about things. And those are all critical ingredients for the new art that has to come out. So I don't like the pressure, the financial pressure that sometimes comes across, but I'm getting slightly better at being a little bit more sovereign about it and saying, you know what, these things come and go, as long as I'm getting better at handling it, I think.
Yeah. So would you say that your community that you're talking about and support, it makes all the difference to be able to pick yourself up? Because a lot of artists struggle here is that they've had a negative review, or people around them don't understand what they're doing, and it's very difficult to self-motivate. So then every time when things are sticky and tough, to get up and go and start your new work, that empty canvas syndrome from, okay, how am I going to do it now? Is it going to be working? That self-motivation.
Yeah, for me, it's critical. And it's also humbling because it's not nice needing or asking for help. I don't like it. I don't know if other people do. I don't like it. But, and it's not always that you have to ask directly for help. Sometimes it's just a case of connecting with another artist and just shooting the breeze about art. It's just being intentional about getting out of the headspace. For me, that's dangerous because I think it was Martin Luther said, you can't stop the birds from flying over your head, but you can stop them from nesting in your hair, which is essentially taking our thoughts captive. You see, the danger is it's almost a blessing to be distracted from those negative thoughts because they will change. Things can change in an instant. I'm amazed at how fickle and how vulnerable I am to thoughts and how that can affect my mood. But I have come to realize that there are things that trigger me and lead me away from a positive mindset. Also, diet, foods and sugars and things like that, they affect me. Whereas if I can just pick up a phone, read a book about another artist, get engaged with other people, it pulls me. And also sport. I love doing sports, a lifesaver for me. So I swim and paddle and mountain bike and be in nature as much as I can. And those things, together with the relationships, they help calm things, keep things sort of balanced.
In balance, yeah. And you are an educator. You're saying you have the education part, you teach. So what does that mean for you? Why is it that you love to teach? And what are you teaching? Well, how does that add value to your life?
I teach art students on a Monday and a Tuesday. I've got just 5 students in each class on that side. I then also got a workshop coming up in 2 weeks' time. But I suppose, until you start before I started teaching, I thought I knew stuff. And then you start teaching and you realize, oh my word, I don't know very much at all. So what I like about teaching is that it crystallizes or helps me crystallize important truths and lessons. And then the other thing that I love about teaching is that I don't see it as like a teacher at the front teaching students, but it's this impartation, this encouragement of each other to see things and go beyond it's almost like you impart courage. Like I can see And I'm grateful for that perspective. In some ways, what's holding them back, their insecurity about but if I make this mark, I don't know how to make that mark. And I love being able to help them go past that point. And in a month or 6 months, they look back and can't believe how much they've loosened up. So for me, most people come with a lot of fear and a lot of self-doubt and a lot of insecurity. And it's the canvas is a wonderful and safe place to experiment with your courage. And so to encourage them to make mistakes, to make marks, to have fun, to be curious, and then see them embrace that and see them painting in a way that they've always desired or felt that was their way of painting. I find very rewarding, and again, I'm getting a lot from them. I'm having to refine my questions, refine my visual ability to critique their work. And that's helpful for me as well.
And then let's zoom out a little bit about the importance of art. We've talked about the artist's heart and, that art is valuable and important. And why should someone have art on their walls or in their lives? Or is art important?
I mean, it's one of the big philosophical questions for all eternity, but we'll try and answer it here on this podcast.
There we go. In 1 minute. Give us your vision on that.
Yeah, I suppose firstly, I would say because we are individually unique, every human being, we in our own rights are each a magnificent artwork. I think it's ingrained in our deepest being. We are a work of art, collective experiences, DNA, genetic makeup, contexts, everything has made us all so wonderfully unique that I think first and foremost, that's where I would stay. And one only has to look at your environments around us where we say art and creativity have been abandoned or neglected. And you can see that the lack of art, the lack of creative expression leads to horrible hopelessness and drabness and deadness. So there's something very life-giving connected to art and to the importance of art. When we see art, we're seeing an expression of life. When we see the lack of art, when you see a fire that's ravaged a place and it's completely dead and burnt, there's no color or anything, you just get that doom, that somber feeling of meaninglessness. And I think being true to ourselves, being creative, knowing that we're all unique is probably the first thing I'd say about the importance of art. The second is that, as we know, art is a language and it's a universal language. We're living in a time and space where with the internet, it's a global village speaking multi-different languages, but the visual language that is out there on social media is powerful. And so it's an amazing way to connect to other human beings, to evoke feelings, to evoke rage, to evoke all sorts of convictions and ideas. And I think that's very exciting. And art has the ability to bypass sometimes our intellect and our rational thinking and even our minds, and can penetrate the soul, and we can be moved. I think that's another sort of key aspect about art is firstly, we are art uniquely, and then it is a language by which we sort of can connect at a deep, deep level.
Well, you nailed it, Duncan.
For me, I mean, it's very philosophical. There'll be millions of ways we could unpack that.
Yeah, but it's also just a slice of your heart and how you've been processing and how your view is on creativity and art. And it's so wonderful to see, to dive into your head, into your heart. And what would you advise your young children if they would come to you one day and say, Dad, I want to be a full-time artist?
Never.
Don't go there.
No, I mean, I think to my kids or to, I have a lot of, over the years, lots of parents coming here with children who are school going or school leaving, and they're very concerned because their kids love art and they want to do art. And I've thought about it a lot, and I think the world needs artists. The world needs young men and women who are willing to interrogate life deeply, because I think that's what artists do. The world needs artists who think differently, who think laterally, who are willing to humble themselves and be inspired by something external. I think we've exhausted our capacity of rational thinking, and the fruits of rational thinking, of man-made thinking, I think we kind of we're nearing the end of that. And so we need artists who are willing to be available for divine inspiration, to invent new things, to help us see things in their fullest beauty. I think there's so much still to be discovered. And so absolutely, I've only encouraged students and parents. I haven't sugarcoated it or said it's going to be easy, but if it's who you are and that's the way you like to think, and you, depending on where your gifting lies or your talents, whether you're a visual artist or musical or dance or doesn't, it's so different. But I've always encouraged parents to be brave for their kids, to try and imagine that they could be real influencers in the future. That they can really, it might be a struggle, but look at me. I've got 4 children. I've got a lovely home. It's a miracle. And I'm an avo picker's son from Zanin. I'm a farm boy essentially. So, I always just say to them, if I can get this far, your kids can go way further. So, yeah, I think the world needs more artists.
Absolutely. I agree with that one. What artists do you admire? Like you already mentioned Willem de Koning. Are there any other artists that you admire, maybe present day or past day artists, and why?
I suppose the ones that come to mind immediately would be Gerhard Richter. I've seen his work when I was overseas, and what I've been amazed by and what has really inspired me about his work is that it is so diverse. And I suppose I've kind of felt a kindred spirit of that because he has played across multiple media and there's just so much life. It's almost like his whole existence has come through his canvas. Wherever he's been in the world, those are the things you see coming through his canvas. And so he's just been an artist who's reflecting the world that he's been in my view. So I've loved that courage and the bigness of his paintings and just everything about him. I find his work just full of energy and fun and color. And then, there's so many, but certainly Rembrandt is one of my favorites. The Dutch are coming in for some good coverage here.
There we go.
But I think it's the humanity in Rembrandt, the fact that he was a masterful painter and his life was so honest, from the ups and the downs and the normalness of the challenges he faced and the relationship struggles and that is all able to be expressed through his paintings. I'm thinking particularly of his self-portraits. For me, I get to know Rembrandt by looking at his portraits. I feel like I could know that man. We could sit and have a chat because I spoke earlier about the importance of being true to yourself. So there was a man who you didn't have to worry, you didn't have to guess who he was, right there in front of you. He knew himself so well that what you saw is what you got. And whereas maybe a Picasso has got so many masks, so many faces, brilliant, but I don't know if I could easily relate to Picasso. Whereas Rembrandt, I would love to spend time with Rembrandt.
Just like you, your art is a big deal. But it's not always easy to stand out and sell your work. If you find all that posting, promoting, and marketing a challenge, then I have some good news. In my new ebook, 10 industry experts share their top art marketing and selling tips. This guide is free and ready for you to download. Go to www.soniasmallhere.com. Now let's rejoin Duncan for more of his art story. In closing, Duncan, what advice would you give the 20-year-old version of Duncan? Is there anything that you would do differently, or what advice would you give that 20-year-old version looking forward?
Yeah, it's easy to look back in hindsight and say, don't be so affected by what people think and say about you. But, I remember, your identity is still being shaped a lot. And so one is susceptible to opinions of others largely. But if you can guard against that, if you can have made some good progress in being okay with yourself, I think that gets you going quicker. Another thing I would say is, be courageous, take as many risks, taste and see as much as you can. And if possible, be as intentional about educational opportunities as possible. So in other words, seek out residencies, seek out, and I'm not talking formal education only, although I think that's brilliant. Seek out mentors, seek out men and women who for whatever reason have grabbed your attention, and learn from them and make sacrifices to be in their company. I wish I had done more of that.
And any books that you can recommend? Anything that you are reading at the moment or have read, art related or art business related, that you can recommend? Oh, that's a great book, great insight. It really helped me.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone through a book by Ken Robinson. So Ken Robinson has probably got the most famous TED Talk clip, How Traditional Schools Kill Creativity. So that's been an eye-opener for me. So he's got a book called The Element, which essentially just unpacks where your natural aptitude and your personal passion converge, and where is that point? And that's helped me also just make peace with my own creative walk. And then coupled with that, most artists would have gone through this book at some point, which is Betty Edwards' Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. And it sounds just like an arbitrary textbook, but if I think about it, that insight into how our brains work and the ability to help people see, because the problem is never in drawing, it's in seeing. And I think that's not just about art, it's about life. And I think that doesn't just apply to learning to draw. It's about learning to use both sides of your brain and essentially your creativity. So between Ken Robinson and The Element and research around creativity, and then Betty Edwards' book, I mean, there are millions of great authors doing great things that I could think about. But those two, they're still shaping the way I impart and share and train students.
Well, we'll definitely put those titles in the notes of the podcast so people can have a look and check them out. I know you're a quote guy. You have really given us some amazing quotes, but any quotes or nuggets or verses or life verses that you are living by or you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I did one of my favorite books that I managed to get when I was in London it's called Art is the Highest Form of Hope, and other quotes by artists. So it's a magnificent book. So I'll send you the link to it. If anyone gets that book, it's like, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling useless, if you're feeling like a failure, if you're feeling like you're never going to make it, if nothing makes sense, then just grab this book and listen to the words of every other artist who's gone before you, and it will be a delight. So it's nice to know that we're part of it, that we're not alone in this.
Yeah.
But in terms of a life quote for me, obviously my faith in God is foundational. And so a key verse that has guided me is from the book of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 33, which says, "Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you." So my temptation is to try and solve all my problems, is to try and seek after everything to make the paintings, to do it. But it's almost like pulling the cart before the horse. I actually need to find out who I am first. And in that process, which has been a lifelong journey, I'm getting better at a little bit better, not much, but a little bit better at seeking first the kingdom of God, who I am in that kingdom, what that looks like in contemporary life. What does it call me? What standards does it call me to live by? And in getting that right, I find it anchors me for the other stuff. And then surprisingly, other things do get added. Some things that I find challenging, some things that I find fantastically fun. But I'm okay then to deal with them in a creative way. And so I've put that verse on several sculptures and things in my own sort of, this is my mark. This is what I live and die on.
Yeah. Wow. Lots of wisdom, Duncan. Thank you so much for sharing. Where can people find you? What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, I've got Instagram and Facebook sites, all by my name, Duncan Stewart Fine Art. So if you just Google that, or it'll come up. And then I've got a website also with my name, duncanstewart.co.za. So that's the South African suffixes. And then, my details, email is all on there as well. So they can get hold of me if they want to connect personally. I'd love to hear from people. Love to build bridges, build relationships, encourage you if I can, and be encouraged by you if you, as we share stuff.
Right. Thank you so much for your time and for your generous giving, your insights, your journey with all its ups and downs. I know it's going to inspire and encourage so many creatives, either beginning or maybe they've been there forever. That perseverance is underrated and that keep going forward and stay curious and make that art because it's so worth it. And you've just amplified that again through what you've shared. And so grateful and thankful to have you in our podcast. And I wish you all the best.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sonia. I really enjoyed it. Appreciate you.
It's a pleasure. Now that's all for this week. If you want that extra support in making, marketing, and building a business around your creativity, then you're welcome to join me and a wonderful group of artists from around the world in Thrive. For a limited time only, I'm offering you the full Thrive experience with immediate access to all the modules, the courses, the lessons, the worksheets, the community support, art expert and Q&A sessions for just €27 per month. Head over to www.soniasmallhere.com/thrive to find out more. And if you don't ever want to miss an episode, then you can subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to this episode. And leave a review, as this will make the podcast more visible and easier for other artists to find it. Thanks for that. Have an amazing week, and I look forward to connecting with you next time. Until then.